Welcome to the Local Democracy Talks. My name is Anna-Maria Vargas from the Swedish International Center for Local Democracy, and we are here today to talk about participatory budgeting. Let citizens decide. We have gathered a group of panelists from the cities of Nässjö and Åre in Sweden, and from Barcelona in Spain, and also from Mykolaiv in Ukraine. And we're very excited about this talk and about your experiences of participatory budgeting. Let's start with telling you a little bit about what is the format of the panel. So we will start with this about what is Local Democracy Talks. And for that, I will bring a colleague from the Swedish Embassy in Ukraine, and she will tell us about what is Drive for Democracy. Then we will go into your personal stories of participatory budgeting. Marc, Anna-Carin, Peter, and Oleksandr will share a little bit about this that happened to you and how did you learn about this idea, novel idea of participatory budgeting. Then we would open to questions from you to learn about each other. We are really interested to see whether the Swedish municipalities think there is something interesting in Ukraine that you would like to learn, or in Barcelona, and the other way around. We would also open to questions from the public that is watching us via YouTube, and then we would end up with concrete advice that you could give to local governments around the world that are also watching us and that think about, maybe I should start this thing of participatory budgeting in my city. What is this one thing they need to know? This Local Democracy Talk is organized together with the Swedish Embassy in Ukraine and the International Observatory for Participatory Democracy. So we are very happy to be here, and we hope this can be an inspiration and that you and your stories as politicians can inspire many other cities. So with those words, I will give the floor now to Iryna from the Swedish Embassy in Ukraine. And Iryna, please tell us, what is this Drive for Democracy policy? I think you are muted because we can't hear you yet.
Yes, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much, dear honorable mayors, dear participants and invited guests. It's my big pleasure to be a part of today's important discussion. Yes, indeed, in 2019, Sweden has launched Strengthened Engagement for Democracy, or the Drive for Democracy, as we call it. In other words, Sweden committed to stand up for democratic principles and support democracy in all contexts. Sweden works to help strengthen democracy and voice criticism against democratic deficit or risks of backsliding. Like the feminist foreign policy, which I'm sure you have heard about, the idea is for the democracy perspective to permeate the work of the Swedish Foreign Service and cover all foreign policy and Ministry for Foreign Affairs. But in order to achieve that, we need to work even harder in enhancing a democratic dialogue among nations and among all the stakeholders within our home countries, local authorities, civil society, private sector, academia, and of course, local citizens. In Ukraine, the drive for democracy transforms in many directions of Swedish reform cooperation, like combating corruption, ensuring the rule of law, support for stronger public institutions, equal opportunities, and inclusive economic growth, and many, many others. But since we have all gathered to discuss the local self-governance matters, I would like to highlight one of the few reforms in Ukraine which we believe is a success. It's the decentralization. Strong and autonomous local self-governments are the foundation of all European countries. And one important area of Sweden's support is to show what result direct democracy can deliver. It's greater trust and openness, equal opportunities for every community member to realize his or her potential and contribute to building better life in their locality. But we also believe that responsible governance and direct democracy also mean empowered citizens who can actively engage into the local development and make meaningful decisions over their local community life. Participatory budgeting is one of the available tools to practice direct democracy and provide citizens an opportunity to decide where the money shall be spent for. It ensures increased people trust over how their taxes are being spent and a confidence in their future well-being. In Ukraine, Sweden has been supporting the reform of local self-governance since 2001. We have provided extended financial support both on the local level and on the national one. The most famous programs, which maybe not all of you but have heard about, are You Lead with Europe, where we provide support to the establishment of administrative service centers, support to the decentralization, and many, many others. Both programs, by the way, are run by the Swedish Association of Local Authorities and Regions, or SALAR, what brings additional value for our Ukrainian beneficiaries. Nowadays, when we see so many threats for the democracy worldwide due to COVID pandemic, shrinking space for civil society, disinformation, and attacks on free media, there is even stronger need for all of us to unite in our drive for democracy. Let's do it together. Thank you, and hand over to you, Anna-Marie.
Sharing the experience of the Swedish cooperation in Ukraine, and Ukraine is a country that is happily invited to this talk, so we're happy to hear more about this cooperation. Now is the time to start listening to our great group of politicians that are here with us, and I want to ask you, how did you learn about this novel idea of participatory budgeting? When was the first time that this came to your knowledge? And I want to start with Oleksandr Syenkevych, mayor of the city of Mykolaiv. Oleksandr, in 30 seconds, very short. When was the first time you heard about participatory budgeting?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
I experienced some problems with internet. By the way, I'm in vacation, so it's good for me and my family, but it's not good for our meeting. But anyway, if we remember how we started, I can say that it all started from the cup of coffee with Leonid Donos. It's a representative of PAUCI, the Polish-Ukrainian Cooperation Foundation. We started in 2017. Those were days when cities were selected to be assisted by PAUCA in implementing the participatory budget based on Polish best practices. Actually, a year before that period, I had an idea of introducing this tool to involve citizens of Mykolaiv into the city's life in a more proactive way. I wanted to finally resolve a number of problems that have been frozen for decades. Since becoming a mayor, the priorities in my work remained the same. I wanted to Mykolaiv to be a comfortable city to live in, and the city that has transparent governance process and expanded opportunities for everyone. And I wanted to involve the community into these processes. Visiting European countries, I observed such initiatives and investigated the best practices. So I decided to try it here. In my opinion, this is a great opportunity to awaken and unite the community to get rid of post-Soviet syndrome and inertia.
Thank you. Thank you, Oleksandr. Really great to know that all started with a cup of coffee with a colleague in a city in Poland, and how we really, ideas travel around the world and we make them our own and we translate them into our context and put them to practice. Anna-Carin, now it's your turn, and you are the mayor of the city of Nässjö in Sweden. We see this beautiful background on your picture. Tell us, when was the first time you heard about participatory budgeting?
Thank you for having me here. And first of all, my English is not perfect, so you know that. In our municipality, we were looking for a method or an idea how we could work with a smaller village and countryside in our municipality, because they often said, oh, you politicians, you only put money in the city, not in the countryside and the smaller village. So our people in the section for development in the municipality, they find just the participatory budget method through SKR, the Swedish Organization for Municipalities and Regions. And they show us about this PB, I will call it so. And since 4 years, we started a project, and now we are looking for what are we doing in the future. But we have had 4 successful years when our staff put this for us in the politicians. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna-Carin. And I want to stress that English is not the native language of any of the panelists, neither mine. So we're very patient and use Spanish words, Swedish words, even Ukrainian words. Peter, now it's your turn. You are the president of the City Council of the city of Åre, a beautiful municipality in Sweden. When was the first time you heard about participatory budgeting?
Well, first, thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. I've been working folkbildning. Most of you don't know what folkbildning is. It's non-formal adult education. Folkbildning has the tool of the study circle and has been a very important tool of forming the Swedish democracy for the last 120 years. So that's where I get the passion for democracy. And we also work very much with what Iryna was talking about, empowering citizens. I was in opposition last period before the election 2018. And one of my main things that I went to the election on was PB, to bring some money out to the villages, and they could get ideas about what to do with this money. So that's where it started, and that comes from an invitation to Salar also, who's been a great mentor, you could say, in this. And this first meeting was with Giovanni Allegretti, that I think a lot of you have heard about or maybe met. And he's an inspiration for PB. So that's where it all started.
Thank you, Peter. We've been talking a little bit about this. Where do ideas come from? And it seems to come, at least in Sweden, a lot from the Association of Municipalities and Regions. And it's so interesting how cities will learn from each other. We work very closely with the United Cities and local governments. And it's really about this idea that we are not alone working. We need to learn from each other. I will give the word now to Marc Serra. Buenos dias, Marc, and welcome to the panel. And I have asked you to share your personal story. And I know that you're working right now with a participatory budgeting process that is ongoing, that I will vote soon in the coming weeks. Please tell us your story.
Buenos dias, Ana Maria. Good afternoon to everybody, and thank you to invite us in this talk. I want to share 2 challenges in what we are working in Barcelona. The first one has to do with the context. It's the first time that we have done participatory budgets in the city of Barcelona. And the project began when I took on being councilor in 2019. We discussed it with the mayor and the rest of the government team and agreed on a total budget of 75 million euros. 25 million in 2022, 25 million in 2022, 21, 25 million in 2022, and 25 million in 2023. We started the participatory process in February 2020, and when everything was underway, we had received 2,000 projects from the public, and then the COVID pandemic broke out, and this put the projects into crisis, raising 2 questions. The first one, does it make sense to do participatory budgets in the middle of a health and economic crisis? The answer was clearly yes. It is in a crisis project when the citizens can participate more than ever and decide on the allocation of resources. The second, is it economically feasible to raise 75 million euros of future investments in a context of so much uncertainty? The answer to the second question was not easy. The truth is that with the crisis, a large part of the revenue that the city of Barcelona receives had fallen, and it was difficult to commit to such a large budget, especially in the middle of 2020 when the vaccine didn't even exist. Finally, we opt to maintain the participatory budgets, but reducing the total budget to 30 million euros. Right now, we are immersed in this process since we started with the participatory budgets. 40,000 residents have registered on the Decidim Barcelona platform, in addition to the 40,000 who had already done so previously. The voting will be taking place between 10th and 20th of June. In terms of the second challenge, this had to be with the profile of the participants in participatory budgets. When we spoke with other cities like Lisbon, for example, that had done or were doing participatory budgets, they warned us that in this type of participatory process, especially if it's digital, only middle-class people, white people, tend to participate, and it's very difficult for immigrants to do so. For us, it was very important that this didn't happen in Barcelona, because in Barcelona, that is a multicultural city, 1 in 4 residents were born outside Spain. For this reason, our aim was to focus on communities of diverse origins in the city to identify the projects they could have and encourage them to present the proposal to participatory budgets. One of these projects is the construction, for example, of a cricket ground on an abandoned football field. In Barcelona, there are no cricket grounds, and young people who like these sports have to play in abandoned fields, parking lots, or public squares. It's a proposal led by a group of young girls, teenagers, many of them born in Barcelona, but their families come from Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. The girls took it very, very seriously and mobilized their communities, and this has become the project with the most supports in the priorization phase, with 3 times more votes than the one that came second. As you can see, the project is still in the early stages. We will have the project's winners in a month, and then we will work hard to bring through. Thank you.
Oh, Marc, this is an amazing story, really, and inspiring for Sweden, where I am right now, where we have a lot of immigrant communities that have a hard time to engage, that feel it's difficult to be part of politics, and especially for youth. I think youth have a hard time, and children and young, they don't go to elect, and they don't go to vote, they don't engage in party politics. So I will go to our next speaker. Will tell us also a little interesting case now linked to the youth and the children, Anna-Carin from the city of Nässjö. Please share your story.
Yes, I really want to share the story. I told you about the countryside and the small village. We divided up the whole municipality in 8 planning areas. And every planning area will have the PB budget twice. And we worked in 4 steps. They have first asked to come together with the people from the development section and giving ideas. What will you see in your place where you are living? It always about physical investments and not so big money that Marc has in Barcelona, but they have to give the ideas, and they give the ideas. We take it back to the municipality, done a technical analysis, and then we asked all people, no age limit, voting for what will you see in your area where you are living in the countryside or the village. And then we ask them to come together with us again, and we will giving them the results of their voting. And then the year after, we will done the investment that they have voted for. And we have spread it up the money, so they have half of the money on 500,000 Swedish crowns first, and then a second time. We did it twice in every village and countryside. And we can see that the most interested of the idea working with PB was the people, the youngest people, of course, children and youngest, and their parents. But we have about 20 to 40% of the people in the areas both giving ideas, voting, and take part of the whole situation. And I will end up with telling you a short story, because I was in one of the village when they have, we have to tell them about the results of voting. And I met him and I say, hey, this will be good, wouldn't it? No, I didn't vote for it, but my neighbors vote for it. And then it means it will be good. And you see, if I, like politicians, have decided you will have this in your area, they have called me stupid, and they have said, we don't want this, we want this instead. So working with a PB budget, it will give the possibilities for all the people in that area to be proud for their own place in earth. Thank you.
Anna-Carin, let me ask you a follow-up question. When we talked, you said that in your city, even children from the time they were born could vote. Can you tell us, did they really vote? Can I send my 6-year-old daughter to vote?
Yes, I have wonderful stories of small children in our municipality in these areas going together with the parents voting, because we have produced some folders so they will see this or this or this, and they really put their own votes. All people between birth and death have 3 votes per person, and they will put the votes on that thing they want to see in their place. And they were really good at voting. And I think the small children also was given a big experience of what democracy is. It was great.
Thank you. And I think it's, for me as a mother, I have a hard time to explain to my daughter what the government is. She asked me, what is the government? And I'm like, what is the government? But this is what the government is. This is what democracy is. And this is a great example on how to teach our children what democracy is. Peter, now it's time we go to the beautiful city of Åre, near Norway, actually. And you will share your story with us.
Thank you. And I wish I could show you how beautiful it is in Åre, like Anna-Carin could show us Nässjö, but I didn't get the opportunity to have a background. We started off, as I mentioned before, 2018 we won the election, and I got the opportunity to form a municipal committee for rural development and democracy. And when forming that committee, I also found some people in the organization that were as inspired of the PB as I was. So I sort of managed to find my dream team there. And also one of these persons, they were in charge of a bag of money. We had rural development money to the sum of about just over 200,000 euro. I hear Marc talking about 75 million, but 200,000 we had. And we had to split them among 6 different areas. So we divided up the municipality in 6 parts. And then we went out to have this PB. And the money was also time limited. They had to be spent within before the end of 2020. So we were in a bit of a hurry, which meant that we had to make a decision. Are we going to go straight away, or are we going to try to organize this in a very good way so we know that we are doing everything right? But then we made the decision that we had to be courageous. We had to try out, knowing we're going to make a lot of faults, but learning from these mistakes we were going to make. And we had a lot of fun on the way, but we had a lot of criticism. We had the newspapers, the local newspapers were on us, but we got good debate in the papers. So this was one way of doing it that I think should be also a lesson to other people. Don't wait too long, just go and try. And one funny little anecdote that happened is we had one of these PBs we had in Skaliy, a small village right on the Norwegian border. And that's a very developing village with a lot of cross-border business, shopping. We have the Norwegians coming to shop for things that are cheaper in Sweden than in Norway and so on. Plus we have a lot of tourism there. And we went there, presented the idea of PB, and got a few ideas, got maybe 10, 15 good ideas for them to vote on. But then there was a small village next to Skaliy, or next to, it's like 30 kilometers in between maybe, called Handöl. And they heard about this and didn't feel that they were invited, even though they were included in this area. So they asked if they could get the presentation from us. So we went there and presented the idea to them as well. And they got very inspired of this. And they also came up with a few ideas. And what they did that Skaliy didn't was that everyone went out to vote for their ideas. They got people, they were very good at selling their ideas. So in the end, they won. There was the winning idea was dredging their boat harbor in the local lake. And Skaliy got a little bit, they weren't too happy about this. Their idea about employing a rural development coordinator was very important to them. So that just shows how important it is to sell your idea, to make people go out and vote for it, to win. In the end, though, Skaliy got their idea anyway, because the environment courts ruled against the dredging of the lake, so they couldn't make their idea happening. So that was a little bit sad, but there was a lesson to be learned from this, and it was very exciting to see this small village go out and really make a competition out of it. So that's about our PB in Åre. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Oh, now I feel sad for this small group that their idea won and they mobilized the whole community. I think you have a challenge there, Peter. You cannot let them down. Yeah, I need to do something. Yeah, but very interesting to see that it is about mobilizing. It's about knocking on the doors and bringing people on board and sharing your idea. Uh, let's go now to Ukraine, to Oleksandr, from mayor of the city of Mykolaiv. Oleksandr, please tell us what is that you have done.
First of all, I want to put you in context. Mykolaiv is the city which is about 260 square kilometers. And the budget is a really small by European scale. The whole budget of the city is about 140 million euros. And the development budget, the budget of development, is about 20 million euros. So 20 is, like Barcelona spends on a participatory budget, but we have to fix everything, pipes, roads, and etc. So, but thanks to participatory budget, people finally start to understand that the city budget is fulfilled among the things with their own money when they pay taxes. People feel their influence and can address their own needs. In this turn creates responsibility for what is happening in the city. Unfortunately, now we have many Facebook experts who only complain and accuse the government of doing nothing. I answer this as follows. Here is the tool for you. You can do better. Please take a chance to act, develop the projects, and implement them. At first, the process was slow. However, now we have great examples of how the participatory budget has taught people to unite around their ideas and collaborate. Moreover, they continue to change their place to live for better. Thanks to the participatory budget, the residents of the remote micro-district Kulbakino, we call it so, have already implemented 3 large projects worth up to 1 million hryvnias. It's about 30,000 euros. To make people remember that every vote counts, the author of the authors of the project asked to builders to tile the number 443 in the pedestrian zone, the number, how many votes it took for their project to win. Residents of the Ternivka private residential districts also assessed to the possibilities of the participatory budget. People wanted to have a modern recreation area for children and young people. In the end, after looking at the other successful examples, they decided to take part in the program and won. In 2020, 1 million hryvnias was allocated from the city treasury for the construction of the drive skate playground. And the children are delighted and adults are convinced that the dream can become a reality. In 2021, 2 more projects have been chosen for implementation again. We will build a rope mini park there. During the existence of participatory budget, we see how many leaders and activists involved. There are people who submit projects every year. Also, most of them still look into landscaping, infrastructure improvement. Nevertheless, I can state that Mykolaiv citizens look wider and aspire to open tourist and cultural potential of the city to keep valuable historical and architectural monuments. In addition, at the Citizens Initiative, we have been implementing a very important project for the development of the unique architectural monument of the settlement of Wild Park. This is an ancient Cimmerian settlement of the Bronze Age. Imagine that 3,000 years ago, people lived here, built, raised children, were engaged in everyday affairs. Thanks for the participatory budget, it is being transformed into a real open-air museum. And the initiators of the project are students, historians from the oldest Mykolaiv High School. They decided to promote the history of the unique settlement, united various members of the public around future project. This year we plan to upgrade the adjoining territory. Besides the city of Mykolaiv, who is fond of archaeology, suggested to establish a statue of Cimmerian horseman with the armor, which was found on the territory of settlement. I hope that soon our wild park will become a magnet for tourists. For previous years, Mykolaiv citizens have prepared and submitted 394 projects. According to the results of citywide voting, 119 projects have become the winners. You can cast your vote both in writing and electronically. So far 76 projects have been implemented. The other will be implemented by the end of this year. In the most cities of Ukraine, project applicants, as you said, a person over 16 years of age. Mykolaiv is a minimum qualification is 14 years. This promotes the widest possibility involvement for youth and in this process. Finishing. Before put a vote, the project is reviewed and approved by members of expert group that includes both officials and independent experts in various areas of the municipal economy.
Thank you, Oleksandr.
Thank you.
Really interesting and great. And now I have the four of you here. You have listened actively to what they did here in Ukraine, what they did in Sweden, what Barcelona did. I want to ask each of you to think what is something that you thought it was inspiring or interesting from what the others shared. And maybe I start with Anna-Carin. From what you listen, is there anything you think this could be something interesting for my city, Nässjö?
I'm just thinking about what Marc is talking about, and even Oleksandr. They have big money for their PB budget, and I'm wondering when people realize that it's so big money that they couldn't get one of the things. How do you handle the disappointment from the people that who didn't won the votings? That's I'm thinking a lot about when I heard about it. Because that's also democracy when you're handling people who are disappointed. So I want to hear about that.
I ask Marc, what do you think? Did you understand the question? It's what do you do with the people that are sad after they don't win their ideas?
It's a very good question and a difficult answer. Yeah. Now with the change of the total of the budget in Barcelona, our first option was 75 million euros, and finally, with the COVID crisis, we have only 30 million euros only. There are more projects that will be refused, and we are working in this with our team. One option is try to, I think that the most important is the communication with the people, explain how is the regulation of the process, explain which are their rights in all the process, and the transparency about that. And finally, if they don't win, we have to try that their projects can be the best projects that doesn't win can be get profit for other programs in the city council, for other programs of different areas. For example, the urbanism areas can take some of these projects to be a reality, but in different terms, in different periods. Maybe the citizens will have to wait little more than they win the participatory budgets. But this is one of the big challenges that we have, and we are working this with a good communication with all the citizens that are under these 2,000 projects that we have in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Marc. And this is really good, actually. You need to explain to the citizens, but also the ideas could be channeled, as you say, to other government offices and other things that are going on. Peter, let's give you the word. Is there anything that you would like to ask and that you're curious to hear from Ukraine, from Barcelona, or from Nässjö?
Of course it is. I have a million questions, but we won't have time for them all. I'm sorry. But one thing that I wonder about is when you have a winning idea, and I can put this question both to Oleksandr and Marc, who is the executor of the idea? Is it always the city that executes the idea, or do you sometimes have the local associations or the actual idea giver themselves who are executing the idea?
Mm-hmm.
I can answer?
Yes.
Okay, so the money that we use, money from budget. So we have procedures, transparent procedures on how we spend money using electronic database. So it's impossible to give someone ability to do that project. I mean, to resolve participatory budget ideas. But it can only be done by the government, by local government, by the city government. So we do it, and sometimes those activists who take part in idea, they are additional, experts on control of the work. So they control the quality, they control the amount of different stuff that's used in this budget. So only transparent process.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Oleksandr. Marc.
Yeah, in Barcelona we are starting with the project, so now we can speak about our experience in the execution, because the execution will start in June, but the prevision is that the execution will be from the city council, but with a good participation, a co-leading of the associations, and the communities that are in the neighborhoods. And we will do this with following citizens committees. We will say to the citizens, okay, now the projects, when the voting will finish, we will say, okay, now the project will start, and we need you working with us, in these committees, because it's very important, that the things that the citizens imagine, will be the same, of the works that we will do in by the city council, So starting with a good communication, a good transparency, I think that will be a big challenge.
Thank you, Marc. And I think this is a very important point. I mean, if you ask the citizens to give initiatives, you cannot just forget about them during 1 year. Well, you make the park or the building or the road and then bring them at the end. Oleksandr, I wanted to ask you if there is anything you would like to ask Anna-Carin or Peter or Marc, anything that you think that it would be interesting from Swedish perspective that you would like to learn more about.
So in Mykolaiv, the program is constantly being updated and expanded, and we learn first of all from our own, experience, our own experience, and adapt it to the participatory budget to the citizens' needs. So in our country, as you know, Ukraine is still not rich country. People ask for, just some simple projects like playgrounds, football fields, and something like that. So we decided to create additional social projects for people with disabilities, and we have 3 types of projects: small project, big projects, which are depending on money they need, and social projects. What kind of projects do you use in your experience, in your countries?
Thank you. And who would like to answer this question? They have these three different kinds of projects: small projects, social projects, for instance, for people with disabilities, and large projects. Do you have something like that in your cities?
I can start if that's all right.
Yes.
We as I said before, we had a very limited budget in the first round we had. So it's mainly small projects. But what we saw was the trend was that basically all of our villages or areas wanted to have some sort of coordinator. They wanted to get somebody that had some influence within the municipality. So they wanted to have somebody that coordinated the rural development in their area and also coordinated all the local associations. So there was a human resource, you could call it. That's what the trend said they wanted.
Mm-hmm. Anna-Carin, do you want to share from your side?
Yeah, Nässjö, it's quite similar to what Peter told us about, but we have small projects, and after we have stopped this PB, we have following up with people from our development section in the municipality, meeting the local areas people once a year, talking about what did they see in their areas, what they have needed to be done. And we have ongoing dialogue with the people, and that will be a good, it strengthened our relation between the small villages and the countryside and the municipality. And today we are asking us if it's possible to get into the city area, and in smaller areas in the city have also PB budget, but we aren't there yet. But small project and lower raise of money we will have for this PB budget. We are more looking for the process and the democracy who will give an impact on all citizens. It's more important for us.
Mm-hmm. And I also learned from you that you did this participatory budget divided by districts or kind of areas of the city. So maybe not by issues, small, large, or social, but by giving the neighborhoods or the areas the budget. We have a lot of questions.
They were giving the ideas for development, and they were voting for it. So it's their thing the whole way, and we are just in the municipality there. We want to help them, to giving them what they want.
Thank you. So we have a lot of questions from the audience that is following us right now in YouTube. Thank you so much. And I will bring some of these questions. The first question comes from a high school student, and she wonders, or he, if there are participatory budgeting for high schools that they could influence and decide on the school system, on what is going on in the schools, if you know of any experience. Any? Yes, Oleksandr.
We had such experience, and high schools had ability to vote, and then we noticed that a lot of people voted for those projects, and we decided not allowed to do any activities on the city's areas. You know that the areas that should be financed by the city. So we excluded schools and kindergartens because the ability to gather votes for them is easier. When the parents that have chats, they WhatsApp chats, Viber chats, they can gather votes, and they have ability to they have influence to make those projects, and they win, you know. And other people who are not so united, they has no ability to win. So we decided not to allow to use territory of schools as places for participatory budget.
Okay. Oh, well, challenging, because also the students want, of course, to be able to influence what's going on. Here's another question.
Excuse me, I would like to add to what Anna-Carin asked. We use those good ideas from participatory budget to finance them from the budget, from the city's budget. If they didn't win, we use them if this idea is really good, because budget of the city is divided by deputies corps of city council, and sometimes deputies they are, you know, too far from the real life, and the participatory budget gives them ability to come back to the earth and understand what people need, you know. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. I have 3 questions for you, Marc, and one because you mentioned the pandemic. So they are asking about participatory budgeting in the pandemic, like what has been the most difficult. They also ask here about where can we find more examples of participatory budgeting, and you represent also the International Observatory on Participatory Democracy. So maybe you can share some other good experiences for our audience. And the final is a question I had myself as an immigrant. I'm an immigrant from Colombia living in Sweden. I wonder, you said the immigrants were very active. Do you need to be legally residents permanent? I've been like, how to say, struggling through the Swedish migration system, or is this open to literally all immigrants in Barcelona?
Okay, I will try with the 3 questions. The first one, which is the most difficult, in the pandemic context. I think that the most difficult was not a political thing. Politically, in political terms, we know that in a crisis is more important than ever a participatory budget or a direct democracy process. The problem was the budget, in a moment of crisis, not only health crisis, an economic crisis, it's very difficult to start a process like this. And a process in Barcelona, the PV is about investments, and the time to make the investments is 2 years, 3 years, so it's very difficult, to planify investments, for a long term in a crisis moment. So I think that this is our main difficulty. The 2 questions about other examples that can inspire us. For us, was very inspiring to go in the international conference of Iztapalapa, the international conference of OIDP, that was in 2019, before the pandemic. And there we can speak with a lot of different cities that have concrete experience about PV and were very inspiring. One of them was Lisbon, and then we had a travel to Lisbon, 2-3 days, working with the government of Lisbon and the team, the participatory team that are working in concrete, in the process of participatory budgets of Lisbon, and they helped us a lot. Was very useful for us. And finally, the question about if the people that live in Barcelona without legal residence can vote. The answer is yes. For us, it's very important that everybody that is living in Barcelona can vote and can participate in all the participatory process because for us, they are citizens and they have to have rights. Maybe the state doesn't recognize them, their rights, but for the municipality, they are citizens and they have the same rights. So it's very important for us. Not only that they can vote, for us it's very important that they can present projects, and that they can have an active role, in all this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Marc. And I see the time has gone very fast and we try to stay to time. It's 1 p.m. here in Sweden. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here, for taking the time to share these experiences. And I hope that in the future, the Swedish International Center for Local Democracy and the International Observatory for Participatory Democracy and the Embassy in Ukraine can work on more exchanges between Swedish and Ukrainian cities as part of our partnership program. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you so much for everyone that is watching us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.